Today, we're breaking down how to use your VA home loan if you're deployed or stationed outside the United States and its territories, or you're out of the service and working outside the United States. How can you use your VA home loan? Now, you're going to fall into one of three buckets. Either you're going to be active duty, National Guard, Reserve, or a veteran. Now, know all the options that we're going to be talking about today require you to have this property as a primary residence and afford it. I know what you're thinking, like, well, how is this going to be my primary residence when I'm overseas and I'm not going to be living in it? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's dive into the first part, which is going to be talking about active duty requirements. So a spouse or child can meet occupancy requirements for a VA home loan when you are on active duty, right? So this also applies if you're stationed stateside. So a good example of that would be let's say you're stationed at somewhere down in Tampa, let's say, but your spouse has family in Chicago, and your spouse wants to move to Chicago, but you're still stationed down in Tampa, Florida. Well, you can actually still purchase a property because the spouse or child will be living in that as a primary residence. Now, that rule only applies to active duty, and there's no preset time limit before you as a veteran have to move into that property. And the cool part is your spouse doesn't have to be on the mortgage either, but there's definitely some downsides from a estate planning purpose. So check out the channel. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and you can kind of see all the videos that we talk, all the different things we talk about in our videos to benefit veterans purchasing a property. Now, like I mentioned, is that the spouse can literally buy a property anywhere within the United States and its territories. So if you're overseas, stationed overseas, but your spouse is coming back, or your spouse stayed behind, or you're deployed overseas, same thing. They can purchase a property anywhere as long as you can afford it. And you can purchase a single family property, a condo, a multi-family, which is a great option because what we'll have veterans do is they are stationed overseas. They have a child that let's say, is 21 years old. That child is going to be living in that property. We had that happen recently. They purchased a multifamily property and actually had the mortgage paid for by the other tenants. And then their child basically lived for free. And then they have an asset that's appreciating, which I think is pretty smart and awesome to be able to do that. But that's why knowledge is power in these types of situations. Now let's talk about the National Guard and Reserve members that are out there. This gets a little bit tricky, but I'm going to walk you through it. The best thing to do is not disqualify yourself and contact us in the description below to be able to go through your situation, because everyone's situation is unique, no matter how similar it may seem to your buddies that are in the military. Now, if you are an AGR, right, and you have more than 1 year remaining on your contract, then it basically is going to be treated like being on active duty. The challenge comes in is most people are going to, when they come to us, they're less than a year out, and then aren't able to help them. You want to be able to start that process as early as possible because time is of the essence. Now, this is where things get a little tricky, is for the regular M-Day soldier, right? The regular veteran the active duty rules don't apply here. More of the veteran rules are going to apply. That's what we're going to go over next. When we talk about this, right? So if you're deployed on active duty, meaning, because this is important to understand the difference here, is that if you go from being an M-Day soldier with a civilian job, right? I now also including any type of government jobs that you have, to being deployed, all right? What you're going to see is that you'll have to buy in the area that your civilian job is located, right? The spousal thing is not going to apply in this circumstance, right? It's going to be based on your civilian job. Now, if you work remote, you could literally buy anywhere you want to. Your employer is going to verify that yes, you're going to be back at work when you come back. Now, this is another tricky part: is income used to qualified will vary based on which income is higher, right? Is your active duty pay higher than your civilian job? Then the civilian job is going to be used, and vice versa. If your civilian job is higher, but your military is lower, typically you're going to use your military income because you have to be able to afford that property while you are overseas. So same thing, if you have an apartment, you're paying rent, and that's also going to factor against you for qualification purposes. Now, what saves a lot of people is they're going to get differential pay, and then you can use the full income to qualify and use your VA home loan, which is phenomenal. But deployments are going to be temporary. And how a lender is going to know that is, yes, your ETS date may not be for a while if you have one. If you're enlisted, if you're an officer, you won't have one on there. But they're going to ask for your orders. It's how we verify when somebody's PCSing somewhere and they're buying a property somewhere they're not currently living. We verify it through PCS orders. We know if you're in the National Guard or not, and we're going to want to see, like, hey, do you have your orders, which will have a cutoff date on them? And that's how we're going to be able to verify it. That's how we also verify when you are on AGR status, because we're going to ask for that documentation to show proof of continuous employment, you can say, and when that contract runs out. Now, when it comes to veterans, this is pretty simple, but typically you need to occupy the property within 60 days of closing. Now, this is pretty standard on on the VA home loan as a whole. Now, the VA will allow up to 1 year to move into that property for a veteran for a good reason that can be verified, but this is very lender specific, and the VA leaves a very, very vague section in the VA handbook, which is where we get all our information to provide veterans with or lenders with, like, hey, these are your left and right limits. They're really tough. So a good example of that, where we see this happen the most, okay, from my end anyways, is that when veterans are transitioning out of the service, and let's say they're starting a job in 7 months, and they're starting their civilian job in 7 months. So what will happen is we'll have an executed job offer letter that's not contingent on anything from the employee, right? Like, did all their background checks, screenings, all of it. They've passed everything. Then we're actually able to use that future income. Again, it's going to be based on, the higher or the lower, just going to depend. And then the veteran is able to purchase a property and not move into that for up to a year. Now, the thing is that a spouse can move ahead of time, but you have to still be able to qualify holding both a mortgage and a rental, or whatever situation may be. There's definitely ways that you can massage that based on your situation. Now, anything more than a year out, this is for veterans, is not, and a move-in date is not considered to be reasonable according to the VA, so they won't allow you to do it. Now, you can always call the regional loan center. They are actually pretty awesome at answering questions. And if you have questions about your situation because a lender didn't qualify you or they denied you, they may give you a general and blanket answer like, well, it's at the lender's discretion, because we kind of leave it vague, which is kind of like most of the time what they do. But again, that's something that we can help you with. All we do is VA loans, and we do them across the country. So happy to help on that. So knowledge is power. I hope you guys learned some stuff today. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys soon.